This is the year. This is the year I've been talking about. This is crazy. And 2024 is the beginning. I'm very worried about the devaluation. Now, what that does for one of my other predictions, what that does for Bitcoin prices, yeah, good stuff. This is the year. This is the year I've been talking about. This is crazy. I've actually been talking about this since 2018, which is hard to believe. That's 6 years ago. I mean, that's a long, but I've been talking about this cycle, this 14-year cycle that people are just sick of hearing about, but now it's here. And 2024 is the beginning. And this first year, this first year, 2024, we've got the halving, which takes the fair value from 51, 52, let's just round it to 50, to 100, okay? So 100. Then we get the beginning in June of the parabolic move of crypto fall. So we transition from crypto summer, which is that migration toward fair value, to the parabolic, oh my God, FOMO, everybody in the pool. And I've said this time, I think there's less leverage in the system. So maybe we only get 1.5 fair value in this cycle instead of the 2.3. You know, that's max, and those guys are at 250, whatever. I'm probably in the 150 range. That's just on supply and demand of the halving and the change in the available supply. Well, then, in addition to the normal supply shock, we get this demand shock. And it's happening. So that's they're going to prove the ETF. And tens of billions of dollars are going to flow into it in that first week or so. And then ultimately hundreds, plural, of billions. That could, I can't even put a number on what that could do, because we only trade $8 billion a day. And there's a whole bunch of people who've said they're not selling. I think 150 is in the bag. And I'm just going to stick with that. I think we're going to 150. And I think there could be a positive above that if things go as I think they are going to go. Whereas if they do allow that conversion and the fees just go down and people don't have to sell that puts more pressure on the upside. There should be something else in the formula, in the difficulty adjustment, because the fact that the block rewards get cut in half means the price has to double or the miners are done, right? Because the miners adjust, the costs adjust to the price, and they buy more equipment and they're running not at monster profits. But, and so if you look at all the previous cycles, the fair value doubled. Well, but isn't the difficulty adjustment supposed to? But I don't think it can. And so just that alone, right? Just the thought in people's brain that suddenly this is not a $50,000 asset, it's a $100,000 asset, I think could trigger a level of FOMO. Bitcoin is an institutional asset, but it also is, if you believe this as I do, if Bitcoin is the new base layer of money, right? Which is what gold has been for 5,000 years. Every central bank buys gold, puts it as the base layer, then they issue debt on top of that as currency. And then we all use credit cards and loans. And so you build this stack of quote unquote money, but the only real money, right, an asset that exists in the absence of a liability, is the base layer. As Bitcoin replaces that, okay, because think about it, what people are talking about. People aren't talking about, I'm going to put all my money in the Bitcoin ETF. They're talking about 1% or 2%, right? What is that? That's a gold allocation. How much gold does the average, even if you actually boomer, I don't know, 3%, 4%? It's not like they have 40% in gold. It's not like they have 50% in gold. And why do you have any? Well, it's my hedge. Okay. The hedging instruments are small allocations that have asymmetric upside potential in untoward outcomes, right? Hyperinflations, recessions, whatever. Why do people own gold? They own gold because it outperforms in times of difficulty, right? It zigs when everything else zags. And it over time accretes value because it holds its value relative to the asset you price it in, right? An ounce of gold is always an ounce of gold, but we don't price it in gold, right? We price it in dollars or yen or euros. Same thing with Bitcoin. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It's just a digital form of this beautiful asset that existed for 5,000 years, where the stock, the amount that exists relative to the flow, the amount that's created new every year versus what's lost or stolen, is pretty low. So the stock to flow ratio is very high. Bitcoin actually now is higher. And so in that world, it's exactly as you described. Bitcoin is kind of like I have some, it's my hedge against disaster. It's my FU money, my run-in money, whatever you want to call it, and institutions, the big ones, central banks are going to start buying it. And then ultimately it displaces gold in a digital world as we move completely from analog to digital, and everything's digital, which I think is going to be the case. In that world, that is the base layer. And then all this other tech stuff. I'm so bullish on Bitcoin long-term, not just as digital gold, but as the base layer of the digital age.